It's time to check your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Hey, Vicki, you know what?
What's that, George?
Next week is my birthday.
Man, I love the way you make sure that I never forget.
Do you know, actually, it's not next week, it's this weekend. Hello?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this weekend, June the 10th.
It's true.
Birthday.
Okay. Will be your birthday. Okay.
Yes.
Well, listen, we'll
I
go
never
ahead
let you forget it, do I?
No, you don't. Okay, you don't. And I'll tell everybody who's out there listening right now, I'm gonna get a call or a text or something a couple of more times before this weekend saying, you know, it's my birthday. But I enjoy celebrating your birthday with you, George. Listen, we got another celebration going on.
Yes.
You know what that is?
What?
We got a debt ceiling deal.
Yay! That's a really good thing.
It's more than a good thing. It's one of those things that if we didn't have it, believe me, I don't even know if we would be on the air this week. Okay, it would have been such a devastating thing. But I told someone, I know that everybody's going, well, you know, what's the big deal? You know, it's a debt ceiling and the deal is in place and we're happy about that. But really, 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 Vicki, can you tell me what the big deal was about this entire thing? So I'm going to take a few moments this week, George, and we're going to go back to our format where we talk about things as though we were in class.
All right, before we go to class, can I just remind you to remind us that they should share and subscribe everything that they see and hear.
Thank you for reminding me.
Okay, because I know
they're supposed to subscribe and share everything that they see and hear in this broadcast.
Listen, you so excited about the debt ceiling that you forgot that you want us to share and subscribe.
That's right, George. You can tell how happy I am because I never forget to say share and subscribe everything that you see and hear in this broadcast. So anyway, if the debt ceiling deal did not take place, the U.S. would have been in what's called default. And what that default really means is they wouldn't be able to make their scheduled payments to investors, people who are holding government debt known as treasuries. So as you know, George, we've talked about treasuries before because treasuries are basically the payments that individuals holding government debt receive. And among some of the big holders of our debt are foreign central banks. And those central banks depend on the treasuries and the US dollar, not only for their own monetary reserves. That's one of the reasons this was such a big thing around the world. So think about this. If we had defaulted, that would have trashed the credit score for the United States government. Just like you default on a debt, your credit score gets trashed. Well, that would have trashed the credit score for the United States government for not just a year or two, probably for a decade or two. And since we, the citizens of the country, are basically the debtors, we would have been responsible for more revenue being needed, meaning higher taxes, for decades around this default. So, George, this is the time I'll say this. This is where we kind of bring all the things that we talked about in the past together and the terminology about markets and the tools around the markets and the real economy. And treasuries, if you recall, are the lifeblood of the economy. This is where capital flows. This is where everything takes place. As a reserve currency for the world economic system, everything is impacted by what happens with the treasury market, and a default would have been an interrelated event that would have crashed economies around the world. Unemployment would have gone, skyrocketed. Costs, we're already dealing with inflation. You don't even want to think about it if we had inflation on top of this default. In fact, some statistics for you. Interest payments, because what happens is treasuries with your bonds pay out an interest payment. The interest payment, listen to this, made on the 15th, it's usually made on the 15th and the last day of the month. The interest payment at the end of May was between $10 and $16 billion. $10 and $16 billion.
Wow.
The June mid-month payment is expected to be about $3 billion. That does not include anything that's happening concerning healthcare payouts, Social Security payouts, all of those large mandates that we have. Also, maturity payments, because bonds mature. And at that point in time, the person who purchased the bond is expecting their principal back. Right now, it's anticipated by the end of May or at the end of the May, when they actually look at the full amount, it was roughly $90 billion. And $138 billion was maturing throughout the month of June. So if you add all this up, all the interest payments and the maturity payments, we were looking at basically about $270 billion that was due. And the cash on hand, this is what Janet Yellen was yelling about. The cash on hand at the Treasury at that point in time was about $360. Now that you sound, well, that's still a little bit in there. Yes, there is. But the Social Security payments hadn't been made yet. And all the other things that come out as far as healthcare payments. So we were going to be without cash if that debt ceiling wasn't raised. Now, I don't want to oversimplify this, but think of it this way. You have a credit card and your credit limit gets maxed out.
Right.
You have no more cash to actually go any further with any other types of payments that you may have. Same thing here. And then on top of it, you didn't have the cash to buy down or pay out your debtors. You would have a crash of your credit, a crash of everything that you think is important, and everything interrelated to paying your bills, to paying all of your debts at home. Same thing with the U.S. government, but in a much bigger way. So commerce would have slowed down. The question would be, as far as accepting U.S. currency around the world, well, should I take it? Because will I really get paid? Well, should I invest in the country? Should I do business with the U.S.? Okay, so all of those questions would have arisen. Growth would have slowed down, and we would have been in a pickle. I don't want to use, that's the best word I could use on air. We would have been in, for sure, pickle, okay, at that point in time. Well, we've got a deal. So what does the deal mean to you, other than the fact that the U.S. credit rating has been saved? Because there were some things in the deal that are going to be impactful for individuals. And one of the biggest ones, so listen to me here, George. One of the biggest ones is going to be student loan repayment. I'm telling everybody, be prepared. Student loan repayment is definitely going to restart. It's been a 36-month, little over 36-month hiatus.
Be a pause.
Okay. That's a big pause. And that's a lot of revenue that's not coming in. So even with what's happening in the courts, there's still going to be some remaining portions of student loans that have to be repaid because it wasn't a full forgiveness. And I would expect and anticipate that no later than November, probably closer to September, October, student loan repayments are going to restart. You need to build this into your cash flow. You need to pay attention. And also look at some of the loan repayment options that we outlined several months ago that were not tied to the Biden student loan repayment bill, but that have always been on the books that you should consider using. But I saw also, George, this was a surprise to me, hailing a story that was in the Washington Post. And there was this woman standing in the background, big, headline that said, hailing from Zachary, Louisiana, Shalenda Young emerges as the quiet, essential figure in the debt deal. Have you ever heard that name before?
I've never heard that name. What does it mean?
I had not heard that name before. She is the director of the Office of Management and Budget. Wow. That is probably one of the most pivotal roles in the federal government for looking at how the money flow and economic flow is going. So through intensive negotiations, Young, who is 45, ended up being in the center of the fight with the sweeping economic and political ramifications. She's known and trusted by members of both parties. So what happened is, as you recall, it looked like probably a little over a week ago that this deal wasn't going to come together. Nothing had happened. Everybody was basically standing on the other side of the line.
Yeah,
drawing a red line.
And you had both sides of the aisle with their own problems, with their own parts of it. Yeah,
exactly. And that was not going to be acceptable. I mean, I could see in the stress in Janet Yellen's face every time she was on TV, and she was making an announcement. Well, the president decided to change the negotiating team. And in changing the negotiating team, one of the primary people brought in was Miss Shalanda Young, Shalanda, Shalanda, I should say, Young.
She sounds like a sister.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get you to
do. You trying? I'm sorry.
How many non-sisters got the name Shalanda from Louisiana?
Come on now.
Okay, Young. Okay, from Emory University.
Okay.
But anyway, she happened to be that figure that everybody, both Republicans and Democrats, had high respect for, and they hadn't brought her into the negotiation. But the president realized they were going to have to change the team or they weren't going to get a deal. So, and in fact, one of the quotes from Kevin McCarthy was, everybody in this place knows her. Everybody in this place, meaning the Congress, respects her greatly. She was appointed to the cabinet level position by bipartisan support, backed by the Congressional Black Caucus and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the entire House of Democratic leadership. So what she actually did was, and was reading some of the comments she made, is you have to stand and understand from both sides of the aisle or both sides of the negotiation what everybody needs, and then find ways on a common chassis and be truthful to each other how to move forward. I am so glad that we had someone like her, Miss Shalanda Young, who is the head of the White House Office of Management and Budget, who finally was empowered to come into that room. We need to be in the rooms, to come into the room and actually help hammer out this deal. She made a comment also. They said that she's a little bit of a jokester, that she worked so hard that she didn't have any clean clothes left because she's been there day and night for a week. But we got it done. So George, I hope this helps everyone understand how critical the debt ceiling raising deal was, how it would actually impact and your lives and the lives of everyone around you. And if you have a chance, drop a nice card of thank you to Miss Shalanda Young in the Office of Management and Budget in Washington, D.C. Last thing I want to remind you about, for those of you who still haven't had a chance to get a copy of the financial planning workshop for families, we still have those available. Reach out to us at info@brackensfsn.com. That's brackensfsn.com. You will not be disappointed. This is a tool that can help you and your family move toward generational wealth in a very specific and organized way. All right, George, I said a lot tonight, and we're going to go ahead and say our plate is full.
All right. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. She is America's Money Maven.
Okay.